So, good morning. I'm Lisa Bradley, and I've written a wonderful book. It's called Abby Wise Away, and it's about a 13-year-old horse-loving girl who's suddenly thrown into the far future when world peace has finally arrived. As Baha'is, we call it the most great peace, and we have a lot of writings about it, and it's one of the whole purposes of our faith, is this time of ultimate peace and harmony we're working so hard to build. So let me hand out bookmarks about this. Actually, if you want to take one and pass it on, that would be great. And I'm on book tour right now. My intent is to travel the entire continental US, and I am asked to come and give this workshop at a lot of places where I'm not going to be traveling. I can't visit every last city. And yet I feel it's vital, and others who've heard the talk feel that every Baha'i should hear this talk. And so with your permission, I'm going to be recording this so that the recording can go where I can't be. So that's why the microphone and the two cameras. So just ignore those, and we're going to have fun. That's my number one criteria, is having appropriate fun. When I wrote this book, I very much had the youth in mind. It features a 13-year-old girl, and I'm going to be writing a series. We're going to follow her throughout her life. In this book A, as I call it, she discovers the Baha'i faith just before her time travel trip into the far future. And then she finds out that almost the whole world at that time is Baha'i, and all of the principles have been set in motion, and it is indeed heaven on earth. Then she comes back and she has to deal with the reality of 2007, having seen how perfect it could be, and she sees how far from there we are now, but she also sees the importance of starting now. If we don't try now, it will never happen. And so this is one of the messages that I wanted to give to the youth, because I became a Baha'i when I was 17. I raised 3 boys in the faith, and I've been active, you know, in many different youth activities through the 34 years that I've been a Baha'i. And it's hard to be a youth, A, and it's hard to be a Baha'i, B, and it's really hard to be a Baha'i youth. So I wrote this book so that the Baha'i youth would really feel supported, and they would feel like somebody understood, because I put that in there, how hard it is. I also wrote this book so that people would be able to just hand it to their friends. Okay, so for example, the youth would just be able to hand it to their friends and say, yeah, it's a pretty good book. You know, that's high praise from, you know, a teenager. You don't want to be too, stick your head above water too much to your friends in regards to what you like, usually. And the book will do the teaching for the youth. They don't have to say a thing. My kids did not want to be any more different than they already were. They didn't want to, you know, open their mouth and try to teach the faith. Hopefully you all are different. But for those that, you know, might have a little hesitancy about going into a whole long explanation about the faith with their friends, the book does it for you, because this book A and all the other books are going to clearly lay out numerous Baha'i, you know, principles, writings, laws, covers the virtues in book A, a little bit of history, but the story carries the message. It's a good book first, and then it happens to mention these things worked into the plot. The other reason that I wrote this book is for us adults, because we've been working so long and so hard to build this cause, to build this progress, and we deserve a little vacation to go to this fantastic world that we've been working so hard to build. It also really helps the Baha'i readers who've gotten back to me on this point. It helps to know where we're going. It helps to have a clear vision about this future world that we're all about. So having a vision of what we're working for and what's going to be involved to make it in the form of a really entertaining story has uplifted and galvanized you know, the Baha'i adults. And they also are finding it's not too hard to hand it to their friends and let the book tell them about the Baha'i faith. So those were the 4 audiences I had in mind. What I didn't realize is that people who had never heard of the Baha'i Faith, people who didn't know any Baha'is, would be perfectly happy to read this book. So I had always imagined that the Baha'is would like loan it to their friends, like interested, you know, people in their neighborhood or something like that, people that knew them. But since even the very early days of this book's publication in August 2010, I had just conversations with people out of the blue that I didn't know. And when I said it's about a 13-year-old horse-loving girl who's thrown into the time of the future when world peace has arrived, they said, "Wow, cool, I'd like to read that book." And I just made sure to say, by the way, it's got a lot of horses in it, specifically the Parelli method of horse whispering, which I do. I'm a certified horse whisperer through the Parelli method. And it has a lot of spirituality in it. Specifically in Book A, I cover Native American, Episcopalian, which I grew up as, and Baha'i, which I am now. And I would zip it, and I would wait. And they would say all kinds of wonderful things like, "Baha'i, what's that?" Boom, we're off and running into a conversation directly into the Baha'i Faith. I only met them 30 seconds before, right? Or they might say, "Oh, Baha'i, yeah, my roommate's mother's cousin was a Baha'i, and they seem pretty nice." Or, you know, all kinds of great conversations happened. And I began to wonder why this book was working so much better than like when I would wear my Baha'i t-shirt that I had made up with big letters, Baha'i Faith. And I'd wear that around hoping somebody'd go, "Baha'i Faith, what's that?" Never did, right? And I'd sit at Baha'i booths. And once in a while you'd have a brave soul come up and say, you know, "Baha'i, what's that?" But a lot of times people would come up and say, "Oh, Baha'i, you guys are going to hell because my minister said so last year." Or, you know, all kinds of, you know, "Isn't that a cult?" Or, you know, I mean, it just didn't always go very well, right? So this book, it's always going really well. And I began to wonder why. And the conclusion that I came to is art can better awaken such noble sentiments than cold rationalizing, especially among the mass of the people. Lights of Guidance, page 98. So with this being an art form, you see, then we can talk about the book and the characters and the flow and the neat inventions that I put in there and how she's, you know, going to work out this problem or that problem. And oh, P.S., the Baha'i part, you know, we can maybe discuss that too. So because it's an art form first, and secondly, it mentions the Baha'i Faith, it just puts it on such a happier, less invasive footing, if that makes sense. So it works really, really well for finding open-minded people. And what I found so far in only a year of, you know, traveling and having the book out to work with is that there's open-minded, warm-hearted souls everywhere of all and no faiths. And what we want to do is we want to find these people. And we want to see who would be interested in learning about the Baha'i Faith, because the Baha'i Faith is very loving, it's very inclusive, it's you know, very welcoming to people of any and all faiths. And when I talk about this to you know, people who want to know how this book might actually work, they kind of have never thought of it in those terms. What we really want to be able to do is simply find those souls that are open. And this book works really, really well for that. And we're going to do a little bit of a workshop today on exactly how to do that. So one of the first tips that I can give you is that even like, you know, at the end of this week when you go back home from the summer school, and if somebody says to you, "Oh, you know, you went to summer school, how was it?" And you can say something like, "Great, I heard this author speak about this cool book where this girl goes into time travels into the far future when world peace has arrived, and just see what they say. Because one of the other things that I found out is that everybody wants world peace. This is a marketing point that somehow escaped me for the first 34 years I've been a Baha'i. But everybody wants world peace. Did y'all see the movie Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock when she's the undercover FBI agent, right? And she has this running joke with the other, you know, kind of Pollyanna-ish, you know, do-gooder, and she wants world peace so much, and Sandra Bullock's like, nah, that's for sissies kind of approach, and she's more like, we gotta fight crime and catch the bad guys, and right, and in the end she gets, you know, the title, and in her acceptance speech, what does she say? She wants to empower women to fight bad guys, and then she looks at the Pollyanna in the audience, and what does she add onto her speech? And also I stand for world peace. It's everywhere, really. I mean, everybody of good heart wants world peace. So we can use that, and we can find out who all's interested in world peace. This is a really good entry point, okay? The other thing that you would want to be aware of is when somebody says, oh wow, that, you know, you met an author, or, you know, that sounds like a good book, or something like that, be ready to follow up. But what we want to do is we want to always aim for 2 sentences or less. All right? So what we need to be doing is we need to be formulating our words. We need to be aware of the fact that we are trying to steer this conversation onto a spiritual, hopefully Baha'i level. House of Justice has suggested that we do so, and there's a section in the American Baha'i, you know, giving us examples of people who are trying to do exactly that. So this is a hot topic, and it's going to be a hot topic for a while, because this is how we're going to find our open-minded, you know, seekers who would be willing to come into our Ruhi events that we're so all geared up to teach now. Now we just need population to steer into those classes. So that's why the push for steering ordinary conversations onto spiritual levels.